everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're going to be wrapping up our review of the Rocky 4K Knockout Collection, and we're ending it off with Rocky 4. But before we dive into my review of Rocky 4, if you are a fan of movie reviews, 4K Blu-ray reviews, some tech and game reviews along the way, then this is the channel for you, and nothing would help this channel out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So for the longest time, Rocky 4 was my favorite Rocky, overlooking a lot of its flaws. I'm just a huge fan of the 80s and that 80s excess. I like to say it's when the cocaine kicked in and the cocaine 80s really took off, and that's really when I got into Rocky. So Rocky 3 is kind of like a stopgap between Rocky 2 and Rocky 4, because Rocky 4 really, it just takes off into the stratosphere. We got talking robots, we're seeing a JVC camcorder. You know, the movie is paced way quicker than Rocky 1 and 2, even quicker than Rocky 3. You know, it's only 90 minutes in and out. Rocky defeats the Soviet Union.
If I can change, and you can change, everybody can change.
Very tied into the Cold War. It's very over the top. You know, I think we have like 3 or 4 montages in here. This very much moves like a 1980s MTV music video, and I eat that shit up. I love movies like this. Rocky 4 for the longest time was my favorite Rocky. And then doing this rewatch, I started to fall in love with Rocky 2. I think Rocky 2, up until this point, was my favorite. And I thought, okay, it could possibly overtake Rocky 4. But this time, for the first time, I watched Rocky vs. Drago, the new 93-minute cut of Rocky 4. And I'm just going to come out and say it right now. This is my favorite Rocky film of all time. Not the original cut of Rocky 4, that kind of probably moves down the list, but this new cut of Rocky 4, because despite having obvious extreme similarities, they are very different films, and this just shows the power editing, which I love power editing. And this just shows that if you cut up footage that you already have in a different way, you can tell a more compelling story. Whereas Rocky 4 really kind of loses a little bit of its heart. There's a lot of silly moments. Obviously, the robot is the most famous, and that gets completely cut out of Rocky vs. Drago. But then there's other silly moments with just Rocky. You know, he's got the jumpsuit on, which I love. You know, you got that beautiful Ferrari, I think. I'm not a car guy, so I'm not 100% sure on that. And we still have the montages in here. But we take a lot of that excess fat, cut it off, and then we add some stuff. Most specifically, when right after Apollo Creed dies and gets killed by Drago, the funeral scene, it's a little bit longer, and the speech hits a lot more than it does in the original cut of it. It's moved around a little bit. There's a speech added to it. We get a little bit more flashbacks to Apollo in black and white. The first montage is cut up a little bit different. You know, the one where he's driving and he's thinking, and he's just really thinking about everything in the past. We cut it up a little bit more with some more black and white footage. This movie kind of adds the heart, but still having that 80s flair. So the heart might have been missing from Rocky 4, because for me, I didn't see Rocky 4 when the Cold War was still going on. I was born after the Berlin Wall fell, so the Cold War wasn't going on. So I was just mostly attracted to the, you know, the upbeat music of Rocky 4, and they still keep that in here, but they add some heart to it. So I've been saying throughout this entire watch through that Apollo Creed is probably my second favorite character, only behind Rocky, and this movie is kind of like a love letter to him. It just shows everything that Apollo Creed did for Rocky, how he helped give Rocky pretty much everything, saved him. That emotional punch that was missing from the original Rocky 4 cut, they put it in here in this Rocky vs. Drago cut, and I think it works a lot better than the original cut of the film. The montages are all still there, so there's still montages with a little break in between. You know, the workout montage, we get Hearts on Fire. Then they stop for a little bit because he gets real excited that Talia Shriner's Adrian showed up in Russia, but hey, he's still got to work out. And this is where we get, I mean, man, Stallone, he's a good looking man, and this is probably him at peak Stallone in my opinion, as far as, you know, he's got that beard that he can grow out, he's wearing the winter cap with that leather jacket and just chugging through the snow and running. You know, that montage is incredible. And, you know, obviously it's supposed to show us that Rocky's the manly man. You know, he's just out there working, lifting, cutting logs, while Drago's in there. You know, he's got the steroids going, he's over there lifting himself, all these machines that clearly they had no plans to actually show them being of actual use. We just need to see some things pop up on the screen to make it sound like, oh man, this guy, he's pushing himself to the limit, but he is fake. He's not a real human. He's a robot. But one thing that they do make sure to show you in this film is they try to humanize Drago a little bit in the Rocky vs. 4 cut, which I absolutely did love. By the end of this movie, you do start to humanize Drago, where I don't think you did that as much in the original cut. You tried a little bit. This one, they actually have you caring about it, and that also might be the power of Creed 2, where we humanize Dolph Lundgren as well. well. And if you've seen that and then you come back to this Rocky vs. Drago cut, I think you start to see the cracks in that foundation that would eventually lead to Creed 2. And I personally love that this ties into the whole franchise effect of Rocky and how it's one overlapping franchise from the very beginning to present day with Creed 3 just coming out, and how they're all tied into each other, telling this long-form story. And I think Rocky vs. Drago is the perfect cut of Rocky 4, and really just shows, because I think Rocky 4 is really just a stopgap in the franchise in the sense that, you know, everything before that is very different than everything that comes after that. It's really just the middle of the franchise. It's the fourth film, and it's the film that I truly love the most. If you're not a fan of the Rocky films, a lot of people do come to Rocky 4, but I am a fan of the Rocky films, and I still love Rocky 4. I love the ridiculousness of this movie. I'm glad they were able to add some heart to it with this new cut of Rocky 4, because I do think that this will be my definitive cut going forward. I compared them back to back, and I personally just love this new cut. The robot didn't need to be in there. I'm so glad they cut that out. They added just so much more heart to this. It really feels like a tribute to Apollo, which I just absolutely loved. So if I am going to be watching Rocky 4 now, which was already my favorite coming into this rewatch, I will only be watching Rocky vs. Drago. That is the definitive cut of Rocky 4, and if you haven't been able to check that one out yet, I can highly recommend it, because it really just adds so much more to what I thought was already a compelling story, and it doesn't lose that 80s flair. So if you were worried about losing those smoke-filled rooms or losing those montages, don't worry, they're still there. I feel like they kind of constructed a film that would work perfectly for me. So if you were already into Rocky 4, I don't think you have anything to worry about. But if you weren't a fan of Rocky 4, I think that you really are going to want to check out this cut, because I think you will become a fan of it going forward. But enough of me rambling on, because I'll talk about Rocky 4 all day. It's my favorite Rocky film, but we're also here today to talk about this new Rocky 4 4K that just came out, and it's also the final film in this Rocky 4K Knockout collection, so that's what we're going to talk about right now. So because this is the final part of the Rocky Knockout collection, because it doesn't include Rocky 5 or 6, I will be giving my final thoughts on this, as well as the 4K for Rocky 4 and Rocky vs. Drago, because they are separate films. So just like all the other ones, I have the Knockout collection. So you get that nice slipcover, and then underneath, same box art. You open it up, and here's everything we're going to be talking about today. That's the Rocky 4 4K, and also there are the bonus features. I haven't spoken about the bonus features yet, and that's because I wanted to build up to them. They're only on that bonus disc in this Knockout collection. Now, every single 4K, if you buy them separately in those steelbooks, do come with a Region A Blu-ray. And those included Blu-rays are just previous versions of the film. There's nothing new to it. And actually, for Rocky 4, you don't actually get the Rocky vs. Drago cut on that Blu-ray. It's only available on that 4K disc, which is included in this Knockout collection. But if you buy that steelbook, you will not on that Blu-ray have Rocky vs. Drago. You're just going to have Rocky 4 on it. And I don't know if any of those discs themselves have any special features on it, because the 4Ks in this set do not. So all the special features are on that 5th special features disc only. And I was pretty excited to dive into it, but I thought that for the most part, that special features disc is just a bunch of featurettes. There are some good ones in there. There's one about the Steadicam, which I, ate that shit up because I just find that fascinating. And it just showed some old footage that he took with the first Steadicam that this guy made back in the 70s of him going up and down the stairs with his girlfriend at the Philadelphia Art Museum, where the Rocky statue is, and just showing him going up and down the stairs. And, it's from back then, and they're just testing out this camera before Rocky was made, and they got the footage on that disc. Now, all these special features, I'm pretty sure, were all previously released, so it's nothing too new, but I found a bunch of these little featurettes fascinating, but none of them do tie into any other movies except for the first Rocky, and then they have the new documentary that came out in 2020 when this new cut of Rocky 4 came out. Rocky vs. Drago, Keep Punching is the name of the documentary, and it's just showing how Sylvester Stallone's mindset of recutting Rocky 4 is, and I actually find it very fascinating. I think it's 53 minutes long, so if I was going to give you guys a plan and you wanted to get into Rocky 4, I would say watch the original cut of Rocky 4, then go watch that documentary on the special features disc, and then after you do that, go watch that new cut of Rocky vs. Drago. After seeing what Sylvester Stallone's mindset was going into the film, I think you'll appreciate it even more. I think that's the best way to do this, because, if you add it all up, I guess it's about 4 hours of your day, but if you're a big fan of Rocky 4, I think you'll get the most out of it, and I think you'll really enjoy it. But overall, those special features, I'm gonna honestly say, like, even though I enjoyed a couple of them, it just didn't give me enough. You get nothing about Rocky 2 and 3 in there, and I would have loved some behind-the-scenes stuff on both of those, especially 3, just because maybe we could have got some interviews with Mr. T and Hulk Hogan and their mindsets going into it, but I get it. There wasn't really anything newly filmed. Everything else is available on YouTube. You could probably get some other interviews that you haven't seen on YouTube, so I guess, you know, I can't really complain too much if we weren't going to get like a feature-length documentary other than the Rocky vs. Drago. Can't complain too much about the extras. Now, the visuals on this Rocky vs. Drago 4K. So the original cut of Rocky 4, the 4K is actually not as good as the Rocky vs. Drago 4K. And one big reason why is I guess they didn't think to edit or fix up or clean up the opening credits of Rocky 4, because up until that, you know, the Rocky versus Apollo conversation that they have at the beginning of Rocky 4, and, you know, it was from Rocky 3, you know, the footage just looks very raw and like dirty and gritty, like they didn't clean it up, or like it was like ripped from a DVD almost. But then when you get to the footage that is in Rocky versus Drago, that stuff is all cleaned up. Perfect. I mean, the Rocky vs. Drago cut of the film 4K is the best 4K in this entire set, and it's not really even close. And that's even more than the Rocky 4 4K, which is on the same disc. So that just shows they put all their effort really into this new cut of Rocky vs. Drago, and they're promoting it pretty hard. And I think that's what they really want viewers to see, is this cut, because they definitely didn't put as much love into the Rocky 4 4K as they did into the Rocky vs. Drago 4K. And it really surprised me how noticeable it is. But when the scenes do overlap on that Rocky 4 cut, it looks phenomenal, just like it would on the Rocky vs. Drago cut. There was very little scenes visually where I thought that the Rocky vs. Drago cut faltered. There's some scenes that look a little bit flat and muddy, like the problems I had through Rocky 1 through 3, but for the most part, steady and strong throughout, visually stunning. There's a lot of scenes in this that take place in the snow of Russia, and those scenes just pop off your screen, especially when he first lands in Russia and the snow's blowing around, and I mean, crisp, clear, clean. And that was all the power of the Dolby Vision, but I compared that to the HDR10. They were very similar. I didn't see too much of a difference, but the Dolby Vision, as on par with the other 3 discs in the set, was doing a little bit more work. But it really surprised me that in this same knockout collection, the visuals for this were just worlds better than the first Rocky, and that just goes to show you that it's a source material thing, you know? Rocky 4 came out in 1985. We're in the middle of the 80s. They definitely had access to a lot better technology. It's almost 10 years over the first low-budget Rocky, and I think going throughout this entire set, yes, I think that this got the most love out of every single film in this 4K set, but I do think that they really just didn't have as much to work with the early Rocky films. And if you watch these in order and then go backwards, if you were going to rank these 4Ks, it would definitely go in reverse order. It would go 4 is the best and 1 is the worst as far as the 4Ks go. Now, the films are all going to depend on your personal preference, but as far as the 4Ks go, Rocky 4 is by far the best disc in this set. And you get another DTS HD 5.1 remastered audio, and just like all the other ones, nothing that blew me away, but definitely this is the most steady. There's no echoes, no clicks, nothing. This was definitely the best audio track in here so far. I would say it's definitely on par with Rocky 3. As far as audio goes, I think Rocky 1 and 2 had the worst audio issues, and again, that's completely from source material. It's kind of obvious when you watch them. This one, everything is crisp and clear, and obviously this one you get a lot of montages, so you want to hear that stuff blaring through all your speakers. And, you know, it could have been a little bit better. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It's not the best I've ever heard, but it definitely could have been turned up a little bit. I definitely didn't feel it like pulsating through my house like I have with other DTS tracks. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of a complaint, but it's on par with the other ones. Like, nothing in this set so far has blown me away. I did think that the visuals on this disc that were actually pretty stunning overall. So, overall, this is definitely the best 4K in this set. And if I was going to recommend you picking up one 4K on their own, it's going to be this 4K. I think this is the best film. I think this is the best 4K. You get 2 cuts of the film. So if you only had money for one steelbook in this entire set, for me personally, my choice would be to go out and get this steelbook for Rocky 4, because it's really fun just to compare the 2 cuts of the film. They put the most love into the visuals for this film. The audio tracks are on par. So if I was just going to give a score for Rocky vs. Drago and Rocky 4's 4K on its own, separate from the Knockout Collection, I would give this a really solid 8.5 out of 10. This is the one I think that's worth the most, especially since they all are about the same price. But if you buy this in the Knockout Collection, and as a whole, what would I give the entire Knockout Collection? Well, this is actually a little bit tough. Because the Knockout Collection, you know, it's not really that highly priced. It's about $60 and you get 5 films in here, because I am going to label Rocky vs. Drago and Rocky vs. 4 as 2 separate films, because they are, even though they're very similar, they are definitely 2 different films that I think you can watch them both and not have to worry about it and get something different out of both films. So if I was going to rate this entire Knockout Collection, I think overall it's not the greatest collection of movies I've ever gotten. You know, you don't get a Blu-ray disc for every 4K, so that's disappointing. And then the obvious of not having Rocky 5 and 6 in here is very disappointing, and not having individual special features for each film is also very disappointing. So, you know, there are some things in here that I just really don't love, and especially the packaging is, you know, it's good. Everything in here is good and passable and acceptable, but other than Rocky vs. Drago, nothing in here blew me away. But for the price of under $60, that's really tough, because they are still good. They're all upgrades over their previous Blu-rays, some more than others, and you do get a special features disc, so it's not like you're just getting the films. But there is stuff in here that disappoints me. So overall, what would I rate the Knockout Collection? I think I'm still gonna go with a 7 out of 10 on it. I'm still very happy with my purchase. I'm glad that I own these now and have them in my collection, because every collector should have the Rocky films. But now we are missing Rocky 5 and 6 on 4K. And just like with the Halloweens, and I know people, the Halloween fans, who are upset about them missing the Rob Zombie 4Ks in their 4K collection, it just feels incomplete as a collector. I mean, not everybody is going to be bothered by this, but when 2 are missing the format like the rest of the franchise, it can be a little distracting, and you'll always notice it when you walk by your shelf, like Rocky 5 and 6 are on regular Blu-ray while everything else is on 4K, and it's not in one box, and it, you know, it can be a little bit disappointing, and I'd be lying if I said I'm not a little bit disappointed by that myself. Now, I will be holding out hope that we get Rocky 5 and 6 in the future, because, you know, I didn't get to bring it up in this review, because Paulie really was in the background of Rocky vs. Drago, except for one scene where he basically apologizes for being Paulie the piece of shit. So I can't say too much negative about him in this review, but if we ever get Rocky 5 on 4K, man, I have a lot to say about Paulie. I mean, I got a lot to say about Rocky too, because he should have known better than to trust Paulie with his money. You know, that's on Rocky. Paulie has shown you the kind of person he is. Rocky was the one who was supposed to be able to read that. So if we ever get Rocky 5 on 4K, we'll dive more into that. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed my reviews of Rocky 1 through 4 on 4K. I hope I helped you guys to make a decision on what you wanted to do going forward. Do you want to get the Knockout Collection? Do you want to just do you guys just want to cherry pick the 4Ks that you want to get? Let us know in the comment section below what choice you wanted to go. But if you do want to grab the Knockout Collection, we will leave our Amazon affiliate link in the description below. You can purchase it through that, and it costs no extra money for you, and doing things like that really does help this channel out. Nothing helps us out more than by you liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and searching for us on all podcast services, because we do podcasts now. Search for Let's Talk Entertainment and Media, subscribe to us there, give us a 5-star rating, and then after you're doing all that, I want you to go to Philadelphia, run up those stairs at the Art Museum, and while you're running and out of breath, everyone who walks by you, I want you to tell them about Let's Talk Entertainment and Media. And then after you're done doing all that, I just want you guys to enjoy your day. We'll be seeing you around.